councillors, senior staff members, members of the public in the gallery, to members of the press in the press gallery, very warm welcome to this, our February full council meeting. I also welcome at this stage the people that are watching online. The live streaming is operational this evening, and I advise all people of that. As is our normal practice, we acknowledge country. The Shire of Esperance acknowledges the Capricorn Wadjuri people of the Noongar Nation and the Naju people, who are the traditional custodians of this land and their continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and we extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians today. Councillors, welcome. We start working through our agenda. The attendance, we have 7 councillors in place, and we have a grant of leave of absence to Councillor Joanne O'Donnell. We have applied for leave from Councillor Wes Graham, who's not with us. Is someone prepared to move that Councillor Graham's leave be granted? Moved by Councillor Horan, seconded by Councillor McMullen. I don't think it needs any debate. Those in favour, please show. That is carried 7 votes to 0. Councillors, we go to on to it. That was moved by Councillor Horan, seconded by Councillor McMullen. Okay, so we go on then to announcements by the person presiding without discussion. Councillors, there is something I wish to announce to you today. On Thursday of last week, I presented to Dr. Michael Davis a presentation for his 35-year service to the people of Esperance as a cardiologist. It's a magnificent service. Mary from our media team, who's not with us now, she was at the event, and we did an interview with Dr. Michael Douglas about his service here to us in Esperance, and he indicated to us that he really initiated 35 years ago that he would come to Esperance and provide service as against lots and lots of people from Esperance going to Perth for his service in Perth, believing it was much better for that he saw them in Esperance than that they travelled to Perth. And certainly a very key point of what he said is so true, because when people have had to travel to Perth for medical medical appointments, not only that there's a significant cost, it's not all covered by the PATS scheme, there is also the concerns of negotiating the public transport, and there is many people in Esperance that need this sort of service and they don't have family members in Perth. So I think it's been a great service to our community. He said it's been an enjoyable relationship he's had with the whole community. He's had lots of certainly appreciation, letters of appreciation, etc. to him. But he said he's done it with joy. He was delighted that we acknowledged his service, and he has identified a person suitably qualified to continue on the work that he was doing. So that was a very worthwhile acknowledgement, I believe. And can I say that the girls did up a beautiful little certificate of appreciation, and I found a good bottle of red wine, which he was very pleased to have. Yes, Councillor Jammers.
Can I just ask, sorry, Councillor Nicol, just in regards to the applications for leave of absence, I actually forgot to apply for a leave of absence.
Okay, well, I've jumped that way, my apologies then.
No,
So applications of leave of absence, councillor Chambers has just announced, would you like to give us the date?
Yeah, from the 16th to the 26th of March, if I can, please.
Thank you. And councillor McMullen?
Put mine in last week for 21st to 31st of March.
Right, okay, thank you. So they have been recorded but not supported. Okay, so any further declarations of, applications for leave? If not, someone prepared to move that the leaves be granted. Councillor Oram, Councillor De Haas seconds. I'll put to the vote those in favour. Against, that is carried. I've done the announcement, and now let's move on then to declarations of members' interest. Councillors, are there any councillors declaring financial interest in this agenda? Councillor Chambers?
I'd like to declare a financial interest in item 12.4.2, request for temporary trading hours as I operate a supermarket.
Thank you.
That will be affected by those changes.
Thank you. Councillor De Haas?
I would also like to put in my declaration of financial interest, 12.4.2, request for temporary adjustment to retail trading hours as I own a local business.
Any further declarations? Councillor McMullen?
Financial declaration for the same item, 12.4.2, request for temporary adjustment to retail trading hours as I own a coffee shop that neighbours the proponent's land.
Thank you. Any further declarations? Councillor Horan? Sorry, I thought that you put your hand up. Oh, sorry, my apologies, I saw the hand up. Someone prepared to move that those three declarations, three? I'll get it right. 1, 2, 3. Three declarations as listed be granted. Those in favour, please show. Against, that is carried. Okay, so we move on then to public question time. Oh, my apologies, we haven't done that one, I'm going well. Declarations of proximity interests. Understand what this applies to, councillors? Okay, no declarations of proximity. Declarations of impartiality. Any declarations of impartiality interests? No? Okay, we move on to public question time. Members of the public that have identified they had questions to ask Dr. Newkirk, you have expressed a desire to ask public questions.
Okay.
Yes, you've got a red light.
Okay, I've got a very simple question. Last week there was a bushfire and I noticed that Shire opened the overflow and quite a few people used it. It's good to see. Today I noticed there's still about half a dozen people there. How long do we intend to keep it open, and is it costing us to have it open?
Okay. The CEO would like to make comment about the overflow caravan park, please.
Yeah, the overflow caravan park wasn't open because of the bushfires. It was open prior to that. But in saying that, a number of people were evacuated from Stokes's Inlet and they came to the overflow. So it was handy that it was open at the time. At this point in time, it looks like the overflow will most likely be open till after Easter because all the caravan parks are all booked, fully booked until then. So more than likely it will be, but we'll continue to monitor it.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Okay, the next one is Mr. Rob Hewitt. Did you wish to ask a question, sir?
I'll have questions today.
Thank you. Okay, we go on then to Mr. Ted Gray. You've got a question to ask, please.
I've got two questions, if I may.
Yes.
I've done them as questions on notes, so there's a few questions here. Just preliminary, item 12.1.6, body worn camera policy. I've had a look at that policy and certainly not providing legal advice. But in looking at the Surveillance Devices Act, it would appear that for council employees or Shire Esperance employees, they must obtain express or implied consent before recording. There's another provision there that allows a law enforcement officer to make recordings. Regulation 4 of the Surveillance Devices Regulations describes what constitutes a law enforcement officer. It doesn't include local government employees. I did notice in one council's minutes or recommendation, they try and get Walgett to advocate to have that regulation changed. And currently that isn't the case. The CEO can appoint authorised persons under section 9.10 of the Local Government Act, but currently those persons aren't law enforcement officers and would not appear to be able to make recordings unless they obtain express or implied consent of the party they were intending to record. So my questions are, has the draft body worn camera policy been reviewed by a legal practitioner to ensure that the draft policy document complies with the relevant legislation?
Well,
Yeah,
that's the first question, is it?
first, yeah.
Okay, you want an answer to that now?
No, not right now. If I could ask the questions and then if you want to respond, but it's up to you.
If that was the first question, you said you had two
These are
questions.
questions on notice.
Right, okay.
The actions of the Shire of Esperance employees in using body-worn cameras as envisaged by the draft policy document would be legal. C, the scope of the draft body-worn camera policy document is sufficiently detailed, clear and appropriate for a local government policy document. In accordance with section 1.3, 2 of the Local Government Act, specifically and generally for reasons of accountability and transparency in local government, is the Shire of Esperance going to make the body-worn camera policy and any policy attachments and ancillary documents public documents? If not, why not? And finally, what consultation has the Shire of Esperance had with the Esperance community in regard to the draft body-worn camera policy, and what plans does it have to consult with the Esperance community at large before council votes on the matter?
Well, you've said that's a question on notice, Mr. Grace. We can take that on notice. And I think the key part of your question was in regards to having had legal advice. And I can assure you the Shire has had legal advice, and it's been granted under that policy that we could have our officers wear a camera with what we have documented.
So is that going to be made available to the public as to what the advice is?
Legal advice, you should know yourself, Mr. Gray, legal advice is not available. It's not a public document.
Except that you can disclose it. You can waive the legal professional privilege if you care to. So if you're saying, if the council is saying that it's legal what you're doing, can you provide information that confirms that?
If that's another question, Mr. Gray, I can tell you now we can't provide it to you in the current format.
So is the council not going to advise the community on what basis it is going to use body-worn cameras?
Within the law, that's the issue. Within the law, we've got legal opinion to say we can.
I call on the council to release that information so that we can see exactly on what basis you're doing it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gray. That's your opinion, and you've called on the council to do that, but it's not a question as I see it.
Okay. I
Yes?
Is council aware that the Federal Senate Standing Committee on Rural and Regional Affairs and Transport is accepting submissions in regard to bank closures in regional Australia? The submissions close on the 31st of March. The reporting date is the 1st of December. Has council discussed what measures the Shire of Esperance can take in regard to halting any further reduction of face-to-face banking services in Esperance? If not, what plans does council have to review what steps it can take to diminish any further reduction of face-to-face banking services in this town? And finally, will the Shire of Esperance be making a submission to the Senate Standing Committee in regard to bank closures and other related matters in regional Australia by 31st of March? Not one more.
Thank you, Mr Gray. I can assure you there will be a letter written concerning this, or a submission as you called it, be made concerning it, because we are equally as concerned that members of the public are not getting a service. It is a very, very temporary service where it might be a service here in Esperance. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Okay, councillors, that's the end of public question time. Let's move on now to public addresses and deputations. Mr Sayers, nothing? The petitions, any petitions? Nil? We go to confirmation of the minutes of the January meeting. Councillors, is someone prepared to move the confirmation of the minutes from the 24th of January 2023? Moved by Councillor Oborne. Is there a seconder to, or would you like to read the motion, please, Councillor Oborne, and then I'll call for a seconder.
I move that the minutes of the ordinary council meeting of the 24th of January 2023 and the special council meeting of the 7th of February 2023 be confirmed as true and correct records.
Thank you. Is there a second of the motion? Second of Councillor Horan. Did you wish to speak to it, Councillor Oborne? Is there a speaker against? The seconder wish to speak to the motion? Speaker against on amendment? I put a vote. Those in favour, please show. Against, that is carried 7 votes to nil. We go on to delegates' reports, and you have, thank you for councillors who have represented council in places. We have the list from Councillor Oborne. Do you wish to add to that, Councillor Oborne? Councillor Flanagan, do you wish to add to your list?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to add to the list, attended the Citizen of the Year Award Sundowner to my list. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Donnell is on leave. Councillor De Haas, do you wish to add to your list in any way? Thank you. Councillor Horan?
Just like the minutes of the Port Consultants meeting, which I'll get you after, and the roadwise meeting.
Okay. So you've tabled those minutes. Thank you. Okay. So we go to Councillor McMullen. Do you have anything that you want?
I will add the Australia Day citizenship ceremony, and I guess it's probably be included next month. But I did attend the citizenship award ceremony this morning, which was fantastic, and my fiance is now an Australian citizen, so that was good to see our president shaking her hand, handing over the certificate.
Congratulations. And my list up there, councillors. Sorry, Councillor Chambers. We go to next.
Yeah, the only one that I omitted to put on there was the only one I omitted to put on there was the 26th of January to attend the citizenship ceremony in Rotary in the park. Apologies.
Thank you. I think that, and as I've said, mine are listed up there, and I've nothing more to add to them. Thank you, councillors, all councillors that attended those functions and represented council. We now move on to matters requiring a determination of council. The first item 12.1.1, is the development application proposed oversized ancillary dwelling for lot 1575 Stern Road, Wanjama. Are there any questions you might have to Mr. Henley on this item before I seek a recommendation from you? Page 11 on your agenda, councillors and ladies and gentlemen. Any questions for Mr. Henley? No. If there's no questions, recommendation comes to you on page 17. Councillors, are you, Councillor Oborne?
I'd like to move the alternate recommendation, please, Mr. President.
Alternate recommendation, if you would read what you're moving, councillor. That's on page
There it
13
is.
of your agenda if you're looking for it.
I move option 2, that council approve development application 10.2023.5175.1 for an oversized ancillary dwelling at lot 15, subparagraph 75, Stern Road, Monjamup, subject to the following conditions. Can I just read out the number of the conditions,
Yes,
Mr. President?
certainly.
Conditions numbers 1 through to 17 and following advice notes 1 through to 13.
Thank you. It's been moved by councillor Oborne. You're aware here, councillors, it's been, what she's moved because of the alternate motion. Right, everybody understands that. So, is there a second to the motion? Seconded by councillor McMullen. You can speak to your motion, councillor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the officer's alternate recommendation, understanding that the officers did not have a mechanism to approve this variation because the rural small holding zone does not support more than one dwelling on paper as per policy. In real life, there are no objections from the neighbours, and common sense would say that it was 2 lots and there could have been 2 titles and 2 houses. It's now amalgamated into one title, so it could have had 2 houses with the same square meterage. It's purely about the fact that on a piece of paper now we've redrawn the boundary lines, and I think that it's entirely sensible with no objections from the neighbours and no serious negative environmental impacts or no environmental impacts whatsoever and no negative precedent being set, that there's no reason not to let this family coexist on the same title.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Councillor Chambers.
Yes, thanks. I'd like to speak against the motion. Purely, I know what the block could have been or should have been or has been, but when you look at the policy, the block currently is a single block, regardless of whether it was or wasn't 1, 2 or 3 blocks. And under the policy that we have, then it allows for a ancillary accommodation of up to 80 square metres and a 25% variation of that, which brings it up to 100 square metres or just over the 100 square metre mark. What concerns me is that making a decision to approve this, which is against the policy, without at least looking at the policy or looking at reviewing the policy, is going to set a precedent out there for other people to look at putting a bigger property on blocks of land. And not all of those blocks of land are going to be suitable to have a larger ancillary accommodation unit on there. And I think it's a risky thing for the council to look at approving this. And yeah, I just don't agree that we should be doing it in this process.
Is there a second, like to speak in favour of it? The seconder was,
Let's speak.
so there's been a speaker against, a speaker in favour, speaker against. Councillor Oram. Microphone.
Still going to speak? Okay. Yeah, I agree with exactly what Councillor Chambers says. It's, the rules are the rules, and as far as I can see, why are we deviating from policy when it's, it's 126 square metres? It's well over the variation. We allow for a 25% variation, and it's well above that. That the variation brings up 100 square metres, and it's 126 square metres. And I think, well, that's the rules. We can't muck around with them. Thank you.
Speaker against, a speaker in favour of the motion. Speaker against. Councillor De Haas.
I would just like to agree with Councillor Chambers and Councillor Horan as well. It's setting a precedence. This building is already well over the allowed allotment for the size of the block. And setting a precedence is never a really good thing.
Okay, a speaker in favour of the motion. Councillor McMullen, you were the seconder. Did you wish to speak in favour?
I can't really add much more to what Councillor Oborn said. I mean, if this block amalgamation wasn't there, we wouldn't even see this application. It wouldn't come through. There'd be a dwelling approved on the land immediately. I just hope common sense prevails, and we can pass this one and move forward.
Speaker against the motion. Councillor Flanagan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have to say that initially I was I would have been a speaker for this motion. I know that this is an anomaly, and it might seem to be a nonsense that we had pre-existing two blocks amalgamated with one block, and therefore the policy applies. But in the discussions I've had with staff, officers, and with fellow councillors, I've formed the view that essentially exactly what Councillor Chambers and Councillor De Haas have outlined, which is it's an amalgamated block, it is the block, and the rules should apply. So I have no option. I've thought about this deeply over the last week. No option but to vote against the motion.
Thank you. Is there a speaker in favour of the motion? I think we're nearly out, aren't we? I haven't asked for an amendment. Is there an amendment?
Can I foreshadow a motion? Not at this point.
I would have thought that you could have put up an amendment to the motion. No, it's probably going to be an opposite, is it?
It's going to be an
You've
opposite.
spoken against it. Okay, so you still want to foreshadow?
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I foreshadow a motion to say that we lay this on the table to allow the staff to consult with the applicant to see whether they can review their plans and bring it back to within the 100 square metres. That way it will still keep the application in some way alive until they can have that discussion.
It's a foreshadowed motion. I've got to work out where that sits with us. You're prepared to move your foreshadowed motion? We have to, yeah, that's right, okay. So we have a foreshadowed motion, that's all you need. All we need, we don't need a second to her at this stage, do we? Okay. So we go back to the original motion, which was moved by Councillor Oborn, and there's been speakers against the motion. Councillor Oborn, you have the right of reply.
Thank you, Mr. President. Only speaking to the issues raised in the objections. With regards to precedent, there is already a precedent set at lot 427 Canning Drive, and that hasn't snowballed into yet another application. This application is purely on the table because the lots were amalgamated and they want their family to live on the same title, the same property. And with regards to the size of the dwelling, refusing this application because the house is too big just feels a bit like a wealth tax. Because if it was 2 lots, they could have the house as big as they wanted it. So just because it's one title, I don't see why they should be penalised.
Okay, that closes the debate on the substantive motion. I put the substantive motion in to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against? So it is lost 2 votes to 5. So we have a foreshadowed motion. Councillor Chambers has put forward. Is that your full substantive motion?
Item on the table, to allow staff to consult with the applicant to bring the design in line with the policy.
Thank you. That's a alternate motion. That's all you want on it? Thank you. Is there a seconder to the motion? Seconded by Councillor De Haas. Councillor Chambers, you can speak to your motion.
I just believe that whilst there is good argument for having the application processed, it is about it being on one block, and it is about what the policy and the rules are about. And I don't believe that we should be looking at going against the current policy. I believe that this is the best option forward, and that's where I'll leave it.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against? Speaker in favour. Do you wish to speak in favour, Councillor De Haas?
I'd just like to say I really appreciate Councillor Aubon's argument. I think it was a really good argument. However, as Councillor Chambers has stated, it is against our policy. The whole matter of it is whether it's 1 or 2 blocks. It is 1 block, and it does go against our policy. So I need to vote against. I need to put this new one in, I should say.
Speaker against the motion? Speaker in favour? No further speakers, no amendments? Nothing's coming? I'll put the Councillor Chambers' motion. The correct word was the well, yes, it is there as a standing motion now. I'll put the motion to vote. Those in favour, please show. Against, that is carried 7 votes to 0. Councillors, we move on now to item 12.1.2, the development application carport outbuilding. The items on page 24 of your agenda. Are there any questions you have to Mr. Henley on this item? Any questions, councillors? No questions? Then we have a recommendation on page 24 of your agenda. Is someone prepared to put that forward? Councillor Aborn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the officer's recommendation that council approve development application 10.2023.5188.1 for a carport, outbuilding, shed, veranda, retaining walls and associated works at lot 252 Hockey Place, West Beach, subject to the following conditions 1 through 9 and the following advice notes 1 through 5.
Thank you. It's moved by Councillor Aborn. Is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor Flanagan. Councillor Aborn, you can speak to the motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. This development application has non-objections from all adjoining landowners. It's a legitimate domestic use and it's consistent with previous decisions of this nature.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Does the seconder wish to speak to the motion? Thank you. Councillor Flanagan?
No, thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. Is there a speaker against or an amendment? Nil? Put to the vote. Those in favour? Against? That's carried 7-0. Okay, we move on then to item 12.1.3, the development application, single house, domestic swimming pool, etc. on Castletown Quays. This item's on page 37 of your agenda. Are there any questions to Mr. Henley on this item? No questions? No, okay. So do I have a mover for the recommendation on this item? No movers for? Still thinking. Is there a mover for this motion? Councillor Chambers.
Move the opposite recommendation. I move the officer's recommendation that council approve development application 2022.5166.1 for a single house, domestic swimming pool and associated works at lot 487, 21 Castletown Quays, subject to the following conditions, 1 through to 17, and advice notes 1 through to 6.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Chambers. Is there seconded to the motion? Councillor Horam has seconded the motion. Councillor Chambers, you can speak.
Thank you. I understand that there's been a lot of discussion and we even went to a site visit on this property. It's one of those applications where we seem to be backed into a corner in a lot of ways due to state and other regulations. There is not a lot of room. We could request that the applicant move the wall a metre, but that, I believe, will not improve any of the complaints from next door, and it also would then allow them to move the wall to actually further impede on the neighbours. So I think through the conversations and the work that's gone on between the neighbour and the applicant, I believe that the application that we have on the table is by far the best and fairest outcome from all of the different options that we have that are available. So I would support this application.
Thank you. A speaker against? No speakers against. Is there a seconder to the motion?
Yeah, I thought the site visit was quite enlightening and also depressing for the poor people next door. There was nothing that we could do without, as Councillor Chambers said, we got backed into a corner. I think if we had to push the issue, the other people could have pushed back and it could have been worse. So I think the outcome is what we're stuck with, and again, can't go making changes and trying to tell them that we can take that wall on, because we can't. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion or an amendment? No speakers against and no amendment. I'll put the motion for vote. Those in favour please show. Against, it's carried 7-0. We now move on to item 12.1.4, return of artwork. Is there any questions on this item? So I think this goes to Mrs. Baxter, am I right or not? Mr. Henley's still with us, that's right. Okay. This is on, as I said, it's on page 56 of your agenda. Are there any questions you might have to Mr. Henley concerning this item? No questions? Is someone prepared to move the motion? Moved by councillor Oborne. Would you wish to speak to, sorry, councillor Oborne, can you read the motion?
I would like to move a slightly amended motion and just add a dot point 3 to the office recommendation that we thank Nicole Chalmers for allowing us to have her artwork for as long as she has let us have it, given that it is a family heirloom and quite sentimental to her personally.
Could you please move the motion
Oh.
that you're putting forward then, please?
I move the officer's recommendation that Council 1 remove the artwork self-portrait from the Shire Art Collection and return to artist Nicole Charmer, and 2, accept an artwork of Sarah and John Brooks painted by Nicole Charmer for inclusion in the Shire of Esperance Art Collection, and 3, thank Nicole Charmer for the loan of her artwork for this period of time, which has been an asset to our community.
Second. Okay, we understand the context of it. There's a little bit of tidying up, but that'll be done. So it's been moved by councillor Oborne. Is there a seconder to the motion? Seconder is councillor De Haas. Councillor Oborne, you can speak to your motion.
As we're aware from the officer's report, the artist was unaware that she was going to lose her piece if she won the award, and subsequently the rules have been changed so that wouldn't happen if she had her time again. The piece of Nicole and her young son is, as I've said, a family heirloom, and it was sentimental to her, and it is being replaced, so our art collection isn't going without, and I think this is obviously just the right thing to do.
Thank you. Speaker against the motion? Councillor De Haas, do you wish to speak in favour of the motion as being the seconder?
Nothing really to add, just to agree with what councillor Oborne has said. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker against or amendment? I put to the vote, councillors. Those in favour, please show. Against, that's carried 7 votes to nil. We move on now to item 12.1.6, body worn camera policy. Is it? Oh, no. 12.1.5, adoption of local planning policy. Sorry, that'll do us, that one first. So that's on page 60 of your agenda, councillors. Are there any questions you might have to Mr. Henley on this item? Any questions to Mr. Henley? If not, someone prepared to move the motion then? Planning motion, which is on page 61. Councillor Oborne again, my apologies, I wasn't looking that way.
I move the officer's recommendation that council, in accordance with clause 4, paragraph 3 of the deemed provisions set out in the Planning and Development Local Planning Schemes Regulations 2015 Schedule 2, proceed with the local planning policy, development for which development approval not required, as contained in attachment A.
Thank you. It's been moved by councillor Oborne. Is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor Flanagan is seconded. Councillor Oborne, you can speak to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. This policy was considered by us at length at the December OCM last year. It has subsequently been advertised with no submissions received, and this is simply the next step, which will result in improved customer service and reduced approval times.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Second, wishing to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr. President.
Councillor Flanagan, sorry. Rightio. Is there a speaker against on amendment? I put to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against, that is carried. Councillors, at this stage we go to item 12.1.6, the body worn camera policy, and that is on page 63 of your agenda, and the recommendation is on page 64. there any questions that you might have to Mr. Henley or the CEO on this item? No questions? Councillor Chambers.
Just one, if I may, in regards to the legal, just to confirm that the legal opinion and that we received, that the Shire received, does show that the policy that we have is legal and that the use of the cameras will be legal.
Through the chair, the legal advice showed that the policy was legal. However, the management pages associated with it needed some modifications.
Okay, that answers the question. Any other questions to Mr. Henley? And somebody prepared to move the recommendation on page 64? Councillor Oborne. They're sharing it. Councillor Flanagan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the officer's recommendation that council adopt the body-worn camera policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor Oborne. Councillor Flanagan, you can speak to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd have to admit that I was somewhat concerned when I first saw this item come up. Hence the queries around the legal advice centred upon the legal authority under which the body cameras would actually be worn and the admissibility of any evidence that could actually be used as a consequence of using the cameras. I'm, as a councillor, very satisfied with the legal advice that we've actually received. Understand fully the circumstances under which the devices will be used and that they'll be used in accordance with WA law. And I also think that the cameras are a necessary, not an evil, but they're a necessary device going forward in today's society. In respect of the need for public consultation, I'm not aware of any other not enforcement agency, but any sort of agency that's actually got the requirement to actually enforce the law or statutory functions to actually go out and publicly consult about whether or not they're actually going to use body-worn cameras. I think what is required is for the council to be satisfied that all steps have been made, all inquiries conducted to ensure that the cameras would be used in accordance with law and in accordance with public standards. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Does the seconder wish to speak in favour? Councillor Oborne.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a little bit more to add. I agree with everything Councillor Flanagan said, and I do thank the staff for seeking that legal advice for us before we make the decision. I just endorse this motion because it is about safety for the staff. It's unfortunate that we live in a time, in a world where there are daily interactions with people who are aggressive, but that is the world that we live in, and this is a way to keep staff safe. That accountability, seeing the camera, will reduce aggression by perpetrators, but conversely it also gives accountability of the staff during enforcement. You know, people having some, enforcement, the staff's actions will be seen. So this isn't about us and against them. This is just about accountability. If nobody's doing anything wrong, then there isn't any reason to be worried about these cameras.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Speaker in favour? Councillors, I'm just going to speak in favour of this item, and I just want to make a couple of key points. One was, in the discussion last Tuesday, statements were made that police had to get a legal document to go onto a property. That is not right in my understanding of the law. Certainly, police, if they want to search a property, search a house, or they must get a signed document from a JP or a judge. So let's not get confused with that. Exactly as Councillor Oborne and Councillor Flanagan have have stated that this issue is about safety for our officers, but it's also about making sure our officers are doing the right thing in the way they deal with public out there as well. And we've got the advantages of that. Yes, there are people, and I think we hear regularly about what does happen, and even to police, and we know our Rangers experience that there are some people out there that just don't accept the law as it might be, and they want to take it out in a violent way. And it's just so important, I believe, that we give our officers, our Rangers in particular, that are out in that world dealing with those things, the tools to do their job and to be able to do it with some protection in that odd incident that is a violent one. So I just encourage you to support the motion, councillors. Is there a speaker against the motion? Speaker in favour? I'll put it to the vote. Those councillors, those in favour, against, that's carried 7 votes to 0. We move on now to item 12.3.1, the Corporate and Community Services Agenda, the Financial Services Report, which is on page 67 of your agenda. And the recommendation is on page 67 also. Are there any questions to Mrs. Baxter on this item? Any questions? There's no questions. Someone prepared to move the motion? Not quite. Councillor De Haas, you're willing to move? Thank you.
Yes, I would like to move the officer's recommendation that council receive the attached report entitled Monthly Financial Services Report, incorporating the statement of financial activity for the month of January 2023.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor De Haas. Is a seconder to the motion? Seconded by Councillor Horan. Councillor De Haas, do you wish to speak to it?
I don't really have much to say about this, just that these reports are always a really good point for us to be able to go back through and see just what is happening financially within the council. And I wouldn't say I enjoy reading them, but I think they're a good read. Thank you.
Is there a speaker against the motion? Councillor Horan, do you wish to speak in favour of it?
I made a bit of a study at this time, seeing I had to chair the agenda briefing. I thought I'd better go right through it, and it was really quite comprehensive. I just look at the financial side normally, and I don't delve into it as much. But yeah, it was well done. Thank you.
Is there a speaker against? Councillors, I'd just like to speak in favour of it. Councillor De Haas did say she doesn't enjoy it. I love it. And I find it really interesting, and I'd love to go through and check across it and make sure that it's all done correctly. But I've developed great confidence in the people that we have working in our shire and the financial sector of our shire, the way they put this together, the full detail they give us. They give us a letter of assurance, a statement of assurance, which you read on, and on page 71, which says the council is solvent and I do not consider there any matters of liquidity that I bring to council's attention. Current surpluses at the end of January is $19,134,888. The surplus is shown on the bottom of the statement of activities, etc., and signed off by our assistant accountant, Tamsin Kirby. And that's what gives me an assurance. That statement gives me an assurance every month that the accounts are right. Is there a speaker against? Speaker in favour? Put to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Thank you. That is carried by 7 votes to 0. We now go to item 12.4.1, which is on page 67 of your agenda. I think we need to add a letter into this list of letters. Is that correct? It's been added, has it? Right. it's been added, so that might be why the numbers are a bit back to front in my listings. So, councillors, the letter from WA Country Health has been added in to this. So,
So just the one up on the screen is the revised one.
that's the revised recommendation. Okay, so is someone prepared to move the recommendation? Councillor Oborne?
I move that council accepts the information bulletin, 2, the council priority summary, 3, the delegation's discharge, 4, the Welga quarterly report, 5, a letter from Horizon Power, 6, a letter from the Honourable Colin de Grusser, 7, a letter from the Honourable John Carey, and 8, a letter regarding surgery capacity at the Esperance Health Campus.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Oborne. Is the seconder? Councillor Chambers is seconded. Councillor Oborne, do you wish to speak to this?
Just to say that on a whole new level to the financial services report, this is an enjoyable read. It's informative and enjoyable. It's really great to, especially the council priorities summary, just to keep up to date with just the huge amount of work that the staff are doing every single day around a 44,000 square kilometre shire, and so many different areas. Yeah, we're very lucky to live in this community, and this really is an enjoyable read.
Thank you, Councillor Oborne. Is the seconder wish to,
I have nothing further to add.
nothing further to add? Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Speaker in favour? No other speakers? I'll put the vote those in favour. It's carried 7 votes to 0. We now move on to the request for temporary adjustment. Trading hours. 12.4.2, request for temporary adjustment to trading hours. Now, we have some financial declarations here, don't we? Yep. Okay. 1, 2, 3, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of us, not enough. We haven't got a quorum? Call them back in, please. No, well, you've got to test it, you've got to... Councillors, we can't deal with that item. We haven't got a quorum to deal with it. We had only 4 councillors, and 4 councillors isn't a quorum. 5 councillors is a quorum, so we're 1 short. Okay, so we go to, over the page, we go to reporter committees. That's on page 163 of your agenda. I might be wrong with that number, councillors, because there's been a change. 163? Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, well, that's why I said I think it could be a... Yeah. 161? Reporter committees will be on page 161. Okay. Are there any questions you might have to Mr Burge on this item? Minutes of the committees, Bushfire Advisory Committee. Any questions? No questions. Somebody, is a councillor prepared to move the recommendation? Councillor Flanagan.
Thank you, Mr President. I move that council accept the following unconfirmed minutes. Number 109, Bushfire Advisory Committee, 19th of September 2022.
Thank you. It's me moved by Councillor Flanagan. Is it seconder on the table? Councillor Chambers seconds it. Councillor Flanagan, you want to speak?
No, thank you, Mr President. I imagine that the seconder of the motion might have a little bit more value to add than I would.
Councillor Chambers, you've been called to the phone, to the microphone. Please set your microphone.
Thank you. Look, I don't have a huge amount to add. There is, obviously reading through this, there's some interesting discussions around the amendment of the restriction to prohibited burning time, and the way that we handle the triple O calls to try and speed up the efficiency and try and improve the time to response, although as it was said the other day when we had the dry lightning storm come through town, I think in total we had something like 18 fires running at one particular time. And I certainly, from the incident control point of view, certainly couldn't complain too much about the speed in which they were attended and the way in which they were done. Other than that, the new Australian Fire Danger Rating System, which is now going to be a national fire danger rating system, I think will have benefit in regards to the tourists and the people that we have travelling through, and make it more understandable for people to understand exactly what it is that we're dealing with, and hopefully help to get people to understand the dangers of bushfire and the actions that they can do. Other than that, apart from thanking the emergency services and in particular the bushfire guys through another, which has been a fairly long, hot summer, and it doesn't seem like there's going to be much of a change as we move into autumn. So thank them for their dedication and their work.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Speaker in favour? No speakers. Then I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour, please show. That is carried 7 votes to nil. We've got a urgent business approved by decision. Councillors, item 16, which is a late item has come to you. Is someone prepared to move that we deal with it?
I'll just check there's nothing in number 15. If
Members' questions with or without notice?
there's any, just in case.
Oh, yes, right, okay. Are there any questions that councillors might have? If we look at 15, we've got members' questions with or without notice. Any questions councillors might have of staff at the present time? Okay. Nil. Item 16, the urgent business approved by decision. Is someone prepared to move that we deal with that delayed item? Councillor De Haas.
Yes, I would like to move the officer's recommendation that council endorse the change to the proposal from RAC Parks and Resorts.
Hang on, it was just,
Sorry.
you're moving to the council consider the late item.
Oh, sorry, yes, the council consider the late item. Have we got a...
That's the words we got. Council accept
Apologies,
the late item.
I got too excited there. That council accept the late item, item 16.1, variation to agreement to lease reserve 53801, lot 299 Goldfields Road, Castletown to RAC Parks and Resorts.
Thank you. Is there a seconder to the motion? Seconded, Councillor Flanagan. Councillor De Haas, you can speak to your motion.
Okay, I need to find it again now. I would like to move the officer's recommendation that am I into this now? Sorry,
No, it's,
I'm
you're
getting too far ahead of
speaking to
myself.
the fact that we handle it tonight.
Yes.
As against leaving it
Um,
until
as
next
you can
month.
see, I'm getting a bit excited about this one. So yes, I would just like to move on and get this motion happening.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against dealing with it tonight? No. Speaker in favour? Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I just think it's logical that we deal with this as a matter of urgency given the circumstances. Thank you.
Speaker, any speakers against? There's no speakers against. I put it to the vote. Those in favour? Against, that is carried 7 votes to nil. So that allows us to deal with this item. And are there any questions you might have to the CEO before I invite Councillor De Haas to put it on the table? Any questions you might have to the senior management people around the table? No questions? All right, so we have an item here that relates to the variation to the agreement of the lease in regards to the Blue Water Lodge and RAC Parks and Resorts. So I'll invite you, Councillor De Haas, to move the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. President. My apologies. I would like to move the officer's recommendation that council endorse the change to the proposal from RAC Parks and Resorts for the development of Reserve 53801, Lot 299 Goldfields Road, Castletown, to retain a large section of the existing Blue Waters Lodge building and request the CEO include this change in the lease being negotiated.
Thank you. It's moved by councillor De Haas. Is someone prepared to second that motion? Seconded by councillor Flanagan. Councillor De Haas, you can speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. So at our meeting in November, we endorsed the disposal by lease of Reserve 53801 to RAC Parks and Reserves. This is the site that the Blue Waters Lodge, previously known as the Fresh Air League, sits on. Since this endorsement, the Heritage Council has become involved. Their involvement could have been the end of this plan by the RAC Parks and Reserves. However, RAC have stepped up to the plate and delivered a compromise, which, to quote our CEO, is an excellent heritage and community outcome to retain part of the building whilst utilising the site to its full potential, and one which I'm happy to agree with. I'm hoping this will be agreed with by my fellow councillors as well, and that in the not too distant future we will see a worthwhile reincarnation of the lovely old Fresh Air League. Thank you.
Thank you. So is there a speaker against the motion? Second, I wish to speak to it. Councillor Flanagan.
I don't know if I could put it any more eloquently than Councillor De Haas, so I will add no further words. Thank you.
Thank you. A speaker against the motion? Speaker in favour? Won't delay it, councillors. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against. Thank you. That is carried 7 votes to nil. Next is matters behind closed doors, but I'll be very generous and give opportunity for public question time. Any members of the public wish to ask any questions? Okay, no questions. Then someone move that we go behind doors to deal with a confidential matter.
I'll move that we move behind closed doors to deal with the confidential matter.
Thank you. Moved by councillor Chambers. Is it seconded? Seconded by councillor Horan. So I put it to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against. That is carried 7 votes to nil. we open the doors, please? Thank you. Doors are open. I'd just like to welcome back people that had been in the meeting. I think there's Neil coming back into the chamber. We may have some people that are with us on live streaming again. We thank them for being with us. And councillors, I'd just like to express my sincere thanks to all of you for your keen debating tonight. I thank the officers for the program and drawing us through the agenda tonight, and I'll declare the meeting closed.